All right, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for taking time during this late afternoon. It's almost sleeping time after the big lunch or beer time in Germany. My name is Pranav Rostogi. I'm part of the Microsoft Azure HDInsight engineering team. And today I'm here to talk about sort of how can you build big data solutions faster on sort of Azure HDInsight. And before I sort of get started, I just wanted to see how should we structure this session so that you can get the most value out of it. My initial agenda for this session was around give you a brief overview of what is HDInsight as an offering in Azure, which is a big data Hadoop offering. What does the application platform look like? And look at 3 examples on how you can leverage some of the big data solutions to sort of implement your solutions faster. And these solutions are around, how do I do basic data prep kind of scenarios? How do I do basic BI scenarios? And how do I do basic data science scenarios on top of a platform? So this is what I wanted to cover. However, I just wanted to check, how many folks in this audience know HDInsight? Okay, so it's substantial. Which is good. And how many know about these big data solutions? So I'll be covering, for example, like DataMeer, AtScale, the open source ecosystem. Folks know about it? Okay. So I'll quickly skip over the HDInsight. I'll briefly introduce for the folks who don't know it, but I'm not going to go deep dive because about 60% of you sort of know HDInsight, but I'll deep dive into the solutions. And if you have any questions, please raise your hand and I'll sort of answer those questions as much as I would, and I would be here after the talk as well. Does this sound good from an agenda perspective? Okay, perfect. So, I'm gonna sort of assume that all of us know something about big data, and one of the key things that we are sort of acknowledging with big data is it's hard to sort of get started. It's hard to sort of make a meaningful application in time, and it's hard to sort of integrate with other assets that you might have in terms of how do I integrate my security policies with my LDAP integration, how do I do my Ranger policies with for fine-grained ACLs and stuff. So what we're trying to sort of position HDInsight is it's a managed Hadoop and cloud sort of offering for Hadoop, Spark, and sort of different workloads that are available in the Apache Spark and Hadoop ecosystem. And our value props are mostly around making sure that we can run any of these workloads reliably in the cloud. So we offer you an SLA of 3 nines around the uptime of the entire cluster. There are a lot of productivity tools that we enable in this experience where you can use open source tools like Eclipse, IntelliJ to author jobs and submit jobs. We have richer integration with notebooks, so you have Jupyter and Zeppelin. You can write Python, Scala, or sort of any of these languages on the HDInsight platform. And then from an offering perspective, architecturally, we have sort of made a choice where when you deploy in a cloud environment, we have separated out the notion of compute and storage. So when you spin up an HDInsight cluster, you get machines where you can run your compute, and your data is stored outside of the cluster. So the data is stored in a remote store, which could be Azure Blob Store or Azure Data Lake Store. And the reason we have done that is so that you can have clusters running some of the time, and you can shut down clusters once you don't need it. And your data is still intact. So that means as an organization, you can have this dynamic nature of running Hadoop, where you can spin up clusters on demand, shut them down once you're done with the work, and you can drive down the cost of running a Hadoop cluster in the cloud. And then we sort of integrate with the open source ecosystem very well. So I'm going to show you some examples of how you can run some of the applications which are available, but you can leverage the same to run any of the open source projects as well. So you can run like Hue, for example, if you want to run Presto on top of HDInsight, you can also sort of run these kinds of applications. I just wanted to show you a quick experience on how do you get started with HDInsight. So from a management experience, you can either create HDInsight using the Azure portal, or you can use the command line as well. So in this case, I'm going to zoom in, or try to zoom in. Yep. The best comment of the day today was I sort of showed up with a Mac from Microsoft, and people at the back were very happy. They had no troubles putting it on the projection mode. So, however, this is the Azure CLI. So this is a command line experience of managing Azure resources. So you can sort of create an HDInsight cluster using this command. And effectively what it's telling Azure is, here is my cluster name, here's my password for my SSH user for the edge node, and here's the location where I want to create my cluster in, basically. So once you submit this command, a cluster is going to get created, and you can view a cluster using the Azure Management Portal, which is another way of creating clusters through a UI-based tool. And if we look at one of the clusters, so in this case, this is a Hadoop cluster. We have access to all of the existing tool sets, so you can launch up the cluster dashboard, you can do Ambari views, and then if you're into a Spark cluster, which I'll show you in a second, then you can launch different kinds of notebooks. So you can launch Jupyter, you can launch Zeppelin, you can launch Spark History Server. So you have all the sort of open source tools that are still applicable to a cluster over here. And then from a user perspective, you don't have to do management over here because the service is managed on your behalf. You can sort of focus on your application logic in this space. And there's an option to scale the cluster as well. So you can scale up or scale down the number of nodes based on your demand, and you can sort of automate this process because there are APIs available for any of these operations as well. And so this is a quick overview of what the sort of management experience look like. You can also create a cluster. And once you create an HDInsight cluster, again, this is the same experience where you specify a cluster name. And then you can specify what is the workload that you want to run. Our clusters are specialized. So if you choose a Spark cluster, all the resources go to Spark. If you choose like a Hive or LLAP, it's all the resources go to that particular workload. So we don't share workloads on a single cluster. So that helps customers sort of optimize their workloads. Also, you can sort of very easily create an environment where you have a single data lake where all the data sits, and you can have these smaller size clusters for specialized purposes. So for Spark for data science, and then sort of Hive for sort of warehousing scenarios, and both clusters can talk to data which is sitting in the same storage account. So that sort of helps you create that distinction as well. Any question? No. Good. And these slides will be available, so I have a lot of information that can be sort of digested offline. I'm just trying to optimize it for the conversation that we wanted to have today. The last thing I wanted to mention around HDInsight sort of value props were around enterprise readiness, where we do integrate with projects such as Apache Ranger, where you can have fine-grained access control, and we have a public preview out for Hive-based workloads, and sort of other workloads are going to follow soon. You can also have your clusters domain joined, so now you can sort of leverage LDAP or Active Directory as the authentication mechanism for logging into your clusters as well. And then from a monitoring perspective, the service is managed by Microsoft, and we ensure that the clusters are going to be available for 99.9% of the time. That means that all the nodes in the cluster will be available 99.9%. It's not for a single node as such. Also, Forrester ranked Microsoft in the top right quadrant for the big data Hadoop cloud. And so a lot of these were based on our investments in ensuring that you can run Hadoop reliably Plus, we sort of make it easier to run Hadoop, and we have a lot of investments in making sure that Hadoop is enterprise ready for the cloud. As part of our journey, we've sort of evolved HDInsight from running it as a service for specific workloads to it being a platform where you can run any workload that you want beyond the ones that we support. So if you want to bring like Solar or Giraffe, or you want to run like Presto, you want to run OpenTSDB. So all of these are possible to be run on HDInsight. And we've introduced a notion of an application platform where you can bring in these apps and run them. And effectively what we'll allow you to do is run these apps reliably. So we'll make sure that all of the benefits of the PaaS platforms are available. And we'll see an experience from a customer perspective. The acquisition experience for these will be simpler. So you can go and sort of add these applications, install them, and run them as well. And from an architecture perspective, this is how it's going to look like, where in a cluster, the way sort of HDInsight is deployed, there is a gateway that sits in front of all the nodes that run in the cluster. So all requests go through the gateway, and the gateway is sort of your authentication stack, which sort of figures out if all requests are authenticated or not. And what we have done is we've provided a way where you can provision edge nodes which sit inside the cluster, so they have all the connectivity to all the nodes in the cluster. So you as a user don't have to open up any ports to sort of install these applications on the edge node itself. That means it makes it more reliable, it makes it more sort of secure, where this is taken care by the platform, and then you can sort of focus on sort of your application layer as well. So we'll take a look at sort of about 3 examples on how we can start leveraging some of the applications that are available from our ISVs, some applications that are available from the open source ecosystem like Hughes, and then sort of how do we go about it. The first one is Datamir. So Datamir is a self-service data prep and analytical tool. And the idea behind Datamir and the experience Datamir provides is today, if you look at the journey any developer takes with sort of Hadoop or big data solutions, is data ingestion is a key part of it. And how do you start ingesting data? How do you start doing sort of data prep as you're ingesting data from multiple sources? And there's a learning curve involved where you have to learn some sort of ETL tools. So maybe you have to learn Hive and go deep dive. And not all organizations have that expertise as well. So if you're in a place where you don't have fairly deep Hadoop expertise, but you have some basic sort of business analyst people who know Excel, then they can be very successful with Datamir around the scenarios of data ingestion, data prep, and doing some basic analytics over the data that sits in the cluster, so you can sort of drive insights from data faster. And let's look at a demo of this experience. So what I've done over here is I have installed, I'm going to show you the acquisition experience of the installing Datamir on an application platform on HDInsight, and we'll see a demo of Datamir. So this is a Hadoop cluster in Azure HDInsight. We have this applications tab, which I can click. And I can add applications to my clusters. Again, these applications can range from a variety of scenarios. It can range from, I want to do some ingestion sort of activities. So we have stream sets. I want to do some data prep, which is now so Datamir. I want to do some analysis, or I want to run some machine learning open source algorithms. So we have H2O. And we can start onboarding a lot more of these players in the ecosystem. And then I want to do some visualization or BI, so I have at scale. So the spectrum is immense. And in this case, I'm just going to pick Datamir. It's already installed. So when I choose Datamir, and once I install it, then Datamir will show up as installed. And I can launch Datamir from the HDInsight portal itself. So in this case, if I click web page, I'm now sort of navigated to being a DataMeer user. So now basically what I've done is, as a Hadoop user, I've exposed Hadoop to a sort of a BI analyst. So not everybody in my organization sort of needs to learn or Hive or any of these languages. And so what you're looking at is more of an Excel-like interface where now I can easily upload files. So they have a sort of big range of connectivity where you can ingest data from all these sources. And Azure Blob Store is one of the sources. This is a project that was created where I can, where I would just want to analyze what is the behavior of my customers on my website, so I can figure out which are the pages which are most used or most visited, and which are the pages which are not being visited at all, so I can figure out where is traffic being driven into my site. So that's sort of the business question I want to ask. And in this case, I have two kinds of data sets. I have a customer profile data set, which is who are all the customers in my application. And this data could be fed in from a CRM system or a variety of other sources. The other data set I have is around my log stream analysis. So this is the clickstream data being generated by my web server, where it's telling me what users came to the site and which pages did they sort of land on. So these are the two data sets I have. And what I've done next is, the next step in this process is to combine these two data sets. And I've made a workbook over here where this is my first data sets around what does my clickstream data look like. And I've filtered out all the data that is 200, because I only want to look at successful page visits. I'm not going to look at 404s, which is not found, which is another way of looking at, where are the big holes in my website. But again, the filtering is around, I can filter by status code 200 without sort of writing a deep Hive query. And I don't have to worry about optimizing these queries, because the DataMeer engine will make sure that these queries run the most effective way on the HDInsight cluster. And in case the data grows and you have to scale, then you can scale the HDInsight cluster itself to meet the needs of the query. And then I can join this customer profile data with my clickstream data, and I can look at the dependency graph on how the data was joined. So I get some sort of basic lineage in this tool as well. So this is a great way of seeing what are all the data sets I was using, how did I ingest data, and how did I combine data, how did the data get transformed, and again, which is just a few clicks. And then I can do some sort of querying on what were my top landing pages. So in this case, if you look at what function was applied, we have Excel-like functions, group by, group count, like total, and all of these functions are inherently translated as Hive queries which run on the cluster. So from a BI analyst persona, I'm just like clicking, 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 and everything gets operated at scale on HDInsight. And the last part about this experience is, now that I have all this data, I also want to visualize the data. So there are some graphs that I can start creating based on the questions I want to ask in terms of what does the trend look like, which users are visiting what parts of my site. This data can be linked and exported and viewed in Power BI as well, Tableau and other sort of BI tools as well. So there's a whole spectrum of cases available. So that was a quick demo on sort of DataMeer. Again, the use case is I want to do analysis and data prep for a target audience which is not sort of super proficient in Hive. So that's the key message. Another key pattern that we keep seeing from customers is how do I do OLAP on Hadoop, where I've built up my data lake, I've landed all the data, I've done some sort of data prep. Now I want to do reporting on this data. And the options available for customers are, you can either move the data to some sort of DW offering, but it has challenges because now you need to do data movement, you have to operationalize the data, and it's hard. Or you can start to do some sort of a OLAP scenario. So Apache Kylin is another open source project that does OLAP. AtScale is another provider that does OLAP. The key benefit is, again, no data movement for a BI scenario. You can use any BI tool, and you can use the scale-out features in HDInsight to make sure that you can run these queries at scale. Quick demo for AtScale again. I'm going to log into the AtScale portal. This is, again, an application that's installed on the HDInsight cluster, the same way DataMeet was installed. I've just browsed to the portal. I can log in. Again, this is a target audience, which is of a sort of an analyst, data analyst, not very familiar with Hadoop, but all the data is in Hadoop, and they want to sort of drive insights from this data faster. So this is a portal for AtScale. They have a notion of a designer where you can create projects and you can define your cubes in this designer. So in this case, what I have basically is I have, this is my design service. These are my Hive tables where I have some sort of information on what were the devices that sort of I wanted to ship, what were the session times, what were the query times for the devices. And these are the different cubes that I have created. These are different models that I have created. And then I can publish this cube. I've already done it. So this means now it's published, and I can connect it from my BI tools over here. So I've already published it once. I just wanted to show you the connection strings. Yep. So it has various connections possible. There is a JDBC connection, there's an MDX connection, there's an ODBC connection that you can use. I'm going to now switch over to a Windows machine because I wanted to use Excel on Windows because I wanted to export data from an external source. So what I've done over here is I am going to say get data from external sources, and I'm going to choose from other services, and I should see somewhere online services. Oh, actually, I've already done that, so that's why it's not showing up. So I've already sort of connected to AtScale using like Azure, analysis services, gave it the endpoint. And here, basically, I've created a pivot table. Again, a pivot table is just is mirroring the models that were created in the AtScale designer. And again, so if you start noticing now, any query that I do or any operation I do in Excel gets translated to an OLAP query that runs on the cluster. So keep an eye on the bottom left where it says ready. So I'm going to click. I'm going to say, I don't want all the countries over here. I'm only interested in Argentina and Australia. If I say OK, it basically sort of ran a query on the server, got the results were cached, and so this is the result of the query. So again, now a BI analyst can operate on the petabytes of data, run those queries at scale, get a sub-second response time, and this now opens up your data lake for data warehousing scenarios. So you can start exposing your data lake to, again, so non-Hadoop users. They know Excel or Tableau or any of the existing BI tools. They just want to get insights from data faster. And the benefit of this combined experience is, they can leverage the platform benefits of HDInsight, where they can run this app reliably and at scale as well. Any questions? OK. Sorry, there was a question? No. Let's look at sort of data science. So the experience that we sort of provide from an HDInsight perspective is, we allow you to run Spark on HDInsight. We allow you to run our server on HDInsight. And both these solutions run on scale. We have integration with most of the open source tools, like we have Jupyter notebooks, we have Zeppelin notebooks. You can write Spark jobs using IntelliJ and Eclipse plugins. But what we've also observed is the data science community at large is also growing, and there's a lot of more high-value products that are coming up, which makes the experience better for doing data science on top of big data. And data science is one of these solutions which sort of gives you a collaborative data science experience, where as a team, you can work on a project of data science. As a team, you get team features. For example, you get source control, which is backed by Git. You get a single place where you can see who's making progress on what areas of the project. There is a timeline that you get. There's an inbuilt basic cataloging, and it covers a range of scenarios. It's a tool which does data ingestion for all data types. So it does data prep, data processing. It has machine learning models that you can use, or you can bring in open source libraries like H2O, and then it has operationalization as well, so you can export the whole pipeline and then execute as jobs on a Hadoop cluster itself. So let's look at an experience for Dataiku. In this case, I'm going to show you a cluster. This is a Spark cluster. It is running Spark 1.6 on HDI 3.5. Again, it comes in with a basic set of tool set where you can sort of launch Jupyter or Zeppelin notebooks from the cluster itself. Or you can go to the Applications tab, and in this case, I have installed Dataiku's product called Data Science Studio, and I'm going to browse to it in the portal. Sorry. I entered the password incorrectly, and it's cached. That's why I have to browse to an incognito mode. So in this case, if you notice, I am logging in with the credentials of the SSH user. And if you remember the architectural diagram I had showed you, all requests to the HDInsight cluster goes through a gateway which authenticates all the requests. So it protects the cluster. And this is one of the benefits that you get from HDInsight is the cluster is protected. And as you install these apps, all requests go through the gateway, so you can be rest assured. After sort of entering my password, I'm now going to be sort of taken to an experience where this is the data DSS product, where I can log in. And again, these integrate with LDAP and all these other features as well, so you can have a single scenario where you can sort of use LDAP all the way through. So this is the sort of welcome screen for DSS. Again, you can create a new project from start. You can browse tutorials. I have created this project which figures out the customer lifetime of my company. So what I've done in this project is I've taken two data sets. One is based on my previous campaign that I ran last year, what was the outcome? And I trained my model on that data set. Then I ingest data of customers who are coming to my website this year, and then I predict which of those customers are going to have the highest lifetime on my product. So I can pick the customers, segment them, reach out to them if they're going to be high profile, deeply engage. If they have a chance of churning, then I can sort of engage with them early enough and do the needful. So the idea is to complete this whole project using a single tool. So I'll just quickly sort of show you the breadth of the tool. You can see that there is a timeline view where it shows you what were all the changes made to the project. Like everything is backed by Git, any change that happens, and then there are comments section. The best thing to look at is this flow diagram, which is where I am ingesting data from various sources. Again, they have a variety of sources. So they have Azure Blob Store connector, and they have connected to SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres. And this step is about combining the data for, Oops, sorry. I hope you're feeling well. So this data set is combining, my CRM database from my sites visit that were made last year. This is a step called data prep. Again, if you look at this page, there are a lot of these functions which are inbuilt, like parse the date, put in the right format, which are automatically applied for you. And then you can sort of analyze this data set. You can figure out which one are the outliers or not. And then you can run this data prep operation either locally, or you can execute this at a Spark job or a MapReduce job, either one of them. So it depends on the data set that you have. You can run these data prep operations at scale. Sorry. And the idea is that you don't have to learn any data prep step. All these are graphical-based tools which you can sort of easily apply to the individual columns. And once you're done sort of with your data step, this is the prepared data. You can run a machine learning model. In this case, I basically ran this model for scoring. I can open it, look at the score. You can bring in your own models. There are a lot of models available. I'm not going to go through all of them. And then what you can do is you can look at the incoming data set for new visitors, combine the two data sets. This is your prepared step. And you can run this trained model on the new data set and get a prediction of the customer lifetime. So this is your prediction column. So you can say, sort of analyze, and then you can sort of look at the distribution of which users are in what segment. So this is sort of a fairly easy way of predicting and completing an advanced analytic solution. You are not restricted at any stage to any of the graphical tools. So let's say if you want to take a next step and write some code, there are a lot of different ways you can write code in this tool as well. So what I showed you was the visual interface, but you can write code recipes in like Python, in all these sort of languages available. There is also notebooks which are available. So if I go back, I have this notebooks section. I can create my notebook using any of these, again, languages. And again, once you run the notebook, all of them are sort of inherently executing jobs which run against the HDInsight cluster. So it ensures that all of these jobs are sort of running at scale so that you're not sort of bottlenecked. So nothing is running locally to the VM. And then there's also a sort of a dashboard built in where you can sort of look at the prediction that you did and sort of try to analyze now of all the customers who are going to have the longest value to me. What does the demographics look like, or where are they located, what region are they located? So you can start visualizing the impact of your prediction, and you can also export that data set so you can connect to other sort of visualization tools as well if you want to. So again, this is Dataiku providing data science as an experience, which sort of complements what we have with HDInsight, where you can start off with creating Spark clusters, R clusters. You can start by sort of going the routes of Jupyter notebooks, Zeppelin notebooks, or leveraging RStudio as an option. But this is another way where you can start leveraging what's available out in the ecosystem, install them on an HDInsight cluster, and sort of run them reliably at scale. And that's where we think the best of both worlds can converge between sort of us and the ecosystem. Any questions? Yes.
Is that the native Azure machine learning studio, or is that the third-party product that you can add on that you showed here?
So the question is Dataiku a native product to Azure Machine Learning, or is it a third-party tool?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the answer is that Dataiku is a third-party tool it is not part of the native Azure machine learning. The idea behind all these tools, in fact, AtScale and DataMeet, these are tools that are available in the third-party tools that are available in the big data ecosystem. And what we've been doing for the last 6 months to a year is observing that customers are leveraging these tools to sort of implement their big data solutions faster because of the target audience that customers are. Some of these customers have lots of data analysts or data scientists which are not really proficient in Hadoop or the lower levels like Hives and stuff. And so providing a way for them to install these tools and run them reliably helps them implement the solutions faster. And that's what the learnings that we are sharing over here. Any other question? Okay. So I'm going to show you one more example of a tool. This is called StreamSets. And StreamSets helps you with data ingestion scenarios. So what StreamSets offers is it's an open source tool. It's called StreamSets Data Collector, where you can start ingesting data from different sources. And you can define some sort of KPI / like SLAs on the data transfer in terms of did the data I want show up in what time and so on and so forth. And they also sort of leverage what they call is like data drift. So as data is changing, they manage the changes in flight, and then they can apply those changes on the data set that's coming in. So very quick overview of StreamSets is going to be something like the following, where I have this cluster where I can click Applications, and again, install, launch the portal, so log in. So this is the StreamSets portal where now I can see all my sort of pipelines. So this is a pipeline that I just created that, it generates data, and then you can generate data from a variety of sources, and then it puts the data in Azure Blob Store. And it's got sort of basic transformations in place that you can apply. So let's say, let me stop this. So now I can say, I just want to reset origin. Okay, let's just create a new pipeline. So I can choose a variety of other options. I can select ingestion like from Kafka. I can do Kafka to Redis, Redis to Kafka, Kafka to HBase. So it's got a variety of endpoints that you can connect to. And the idea behind is, this is, again, a tool that you can use to connect various endpoints, manage the data that's flowing. They do the data drift, and you can define some sort of SLAs around how the data is getting transferred and sort of visualize your data flow pipeline. So we think this is another sort of an easy-to-use, lightweight open source tool that can sort of help in your ingestion sort of scenarios. So I just wanted to point out these resources as well. These resources around, it covers the application platform. So this first one is a blog post on sort of the architecture on how this application platform was built, how can you install custom applications. These links are for trying out all the applications sort of I showed you today. And then sort of thank you very much for taking the time for this talk. I hope this was useful. This is something else that we are trying to sort of promote the ecosystem as well, because we feel like there's a lot of these solutions that are available that we believe enhance the productivity in this broad big data space. And we would love to hear your feedback in terms of what else can we do to make running the open source ecosystem easier on HDInsight. Thank you.